everyone. Welcome to the Game Changer podcast. I'm your host, Nick Lombardi, and I'm here with my good friend, Jeremy Race, who is the CEO of Junior Achievement of Southwest New England. Hi, Jeremy.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So Jeremy is responsible for the organization's sustainability, strategic direction, board development, and overall program effectiveness. I'm going to have Jeremy tell you a little bit about JA and about himself.
Sure. Well, again, thanks for having me. Excited to be on a podcast. So I guess we'll start with me personally. Been at Junior Achievement for 16 years. Been in this role as president, starting my third year this year. And we're doing amazing things, and I know we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but I really believe what we do is have a huge impact on young people, specifically in the Connecticut region, which is powerful. On a personal side, born and raised in Connecticut. So lived here all my life, went to school at Fairfield U, so even, I guess, I'm a homebody to some extent, but I think it's a great state. I think we've got a lot of work to do to get more entrepreneurship going here, more economic development going here, and I'd like to think that Junior Achievement plays a big role in those efforts.
That's wonderful, and we're really lucky to have you here. I'm looking forward to hearing your insight. As a reminder for anyone that hasn't tuned into this podcast before, there's the format is a Q&A style. It's based on, the inspiration for this podcast was based on a book called Tribe of Mentors, written by Tim Ferriss. He asked a bunch of questions to different types of personalities, celebrities, business people, and it was about business, personal, all different types of things. So that's what we're going to do today. This podcast I'm looking forward to because I really, as you know, have an interest in financial literacy and entrepreneurship, and because of this podcast, talking about game-changing events in people's lives and how you face adversity and how you handle success and everything in between, I think that we're going to have a lot of good things to talk about.
Great, look forward to it.
So we're going to jump right into the first question, which is, why do you do what you do?
That's the $1 million question again. I've been doing this for a long time, and I think what I realized early on, even 15, 16 years ago, was that when I go to work every day, I can see the positive results that our programs have on young people, that our volunteers have on young people. To your point, you referenced a little bit, we're teaching kids financial literacy, we're teaching kids work readiness, we're teaching kids entrepreneurship, and we're doing that as early as kindergarten. So we're trying to spark, right, trying to be that game changer for those young people as early as possible. And when you see the kids' eyes light up, and you see some of these kids were able to follow through over the years and see them actually creating businesses, getting great jobs. And if we had some little part of that, then I think we're doing our part here. What's
the age group overall of their program?
So K through 12, so roughly 5 years old to 18, 19. So it's a big range. This year we'll reach about 47,000 students in Connecticut, which is a pretty significant
Incredible
number. And a lot of those students are in the K through 6 range. We're trying strategically to reach more students at the middle high school range as well. But I do believe, I'm an education guy at heart. The earlier you can form that foundation and get young people thinking about what they can do when they are older, what they want to be when they grow up, I think that's when you start having real impact.
That's great. So I think that JA serves a very unique role, and my question is, as a follow-up to that, how do you think the parent comes into play? As the child develops, and the formal education, whether it be public or private school, are the skills that you're teaching? Is your opinion that they should be learning these things from the parent, from school, and is that why you fill that niche, or how does that work?
That's a good question. I think one of the things we've always said, one of the main reasons why Junior Achievement exists, and by the way, we're celebrating our 100th anniversary this year, so we turn 100. It's our centennial year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a pretty exciting thing to be around for that long.
Yep.
I think the number one reason why we exist is that these concepts are not being taught in schools. These concepts are not being taught at home. Doesn't mean that some people aren't trying to do it, but I think we kind of jokingly say, it's one of those old adages that a lot of this information, it's almost best outsourced, because kids come home from school after a long day and they're sitting around the dinner table having great conversation. Mom or dad starts to talk about financial literacy and starts to really probe about careers that their kids want to do. Our experience, a lot of kids, their brains kind of shut down, right? And same thing with teachers, because they're with those teachers all the time. But when you go into the classroom, right, as a successful local entrepreneur, and the students see you as someone who's not their parents, not their teacher, but someone who cares about them, you become a mentor for those students. And what you're teaching them and telling them is real life experience. Right. Yes, we have great curriculum, but you're really the person that brings this to life. And I think that's why we've been around for so long. I mean, we have over 3,000 volunteers every year. We're very lucky to work with all different industries, and I think that's why we've been around for 100 years, and hopefully be around for 100 more.
So if people want to volunteer, people that are listening or watching the podcast, they can reach out to me at nicksgamechanger@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to pass information along to you. And I just want to make sure I know the territory. So it's you're across Connecticut. Are you in other states?
So let me start here local. Our office is based in Hartford. We have a settled office in New Haven, and we cover the entire state of Connecticut except for Fairfield County. Okay. Nothing against Fairfield County. There's actually another separate JA in that area called JA of Greater Fairfield County. So they operate that region. But there's 107 JA areas across the country, and we're in 100 countries worldwide. Wonderful. So it's a pretty large organization.
Got it. That's great. So you mentioned a mentor, and I'm going to ask you my second question today. Do you have a mentor, and if so, how have they helped you?
I'm very lucky. I've got several, and I've been very lucky to have, on the professional side, I'll stick with that, some great people who have, kind of taken me under their wing, and saw something in me and wanted to make sure that I continued to grow and be successful. So, I was very lucky. One of my key mentors in recent years is my predecessor, the former JA president, Lou Golden, who, I worked for him for 14 years, and he taught me a lot about leadership, and that's something that I've learned. You can be a natural born leader, but if you really want to be a great leader, it's something you need to work at. And I think I take pride in that, and Lou was huge in kind of starting that process with me. But then I've had others as well. I've had several executive coaches. I've had great board chairs who again have actively kind of taken upon themselves to continue this leadership tutelage. Teaching things like look in the mirror, servant leadership. All these things that are truly important if you really want to have a strong culture in your workplace, and really be the kind of person, which I do want to be, that people want to follow, right? I don't think, and you run a great business, and you have a growing team as well. You want people to follow you for the right reasons, right? Because you're trying to accomplish great things in your company. Correct. We're trying to accomplish great things at JA, and we can't do that if you're just a boss, right? So I take real pride in that, and again, very lucky to have, I can name them all, Tom Baylor, Ray Sprague, Matt Canby, a bunch of great folks who have been part of my kind of growth in this realm here. Were
you looking for them, or did you find them in your travels? I mean, I
think that's the beauty of having such a great board of directors, which we really do have here at JA. That we have great access to people who care about what we're doing, care about our mission, and again, want to see us succeed and want us to see our business grow. So a lot of times it could be me reaching out to them, could be them reaching out to me, or vice versa. So just very lucky to have that.
That's wonderful. That's a good answer. Thank you for that. The next question: which book or author influenced your life?
So I'm going to go two sides here. On the personal side, and I don't remember when I read it. I'm sure we're a similar age. You probably read it at the same time. But To Kill a Mockingbird, still one of my all-time favorite books. And it just for whatever reason at that point in my life just sent some powerful messages to me about life and how to treat people and the wrongs of society, but how good people can make change. And then on the professional side, I don't really have time to read for pleasure these days, but the books that I like to read are about leadership, growth, professional development, and one of probably the best one I've read, which probably every CEO has read, is the Jim Collins Good to Great. Again, it's written in a very simple form, but the messages, just kind of hit you like, Yeah,
Yep.
that is the right way to
That's
do
right.
it. That's how important.
Get the right people on the bus.
That's
right?
how important
That's
the
right.
people are.
Yeah.
So, again, that one still sits on my desk, and I kind of flip through it every once in a while to just reference it.
So as I'm listening to you, and I'm gonna go off the format here for a minute, because you mentioned you've been at JA for 16 years, which is a long time. What you do is all about helping other people, helping children, but you have all these different elements. There's a fundraising component. There's, you're being, talking about being a boss. Talk about actually being out in the field, being out in the classroom, actually like the give back portion of it. Is there something that drives you to do that? Was there a moment in time when you said, I want to do this or go down this path, even just being in a nonprofit world? Is there before those 16 years even started, what kind of got you there?
That's a good question. I think like most young people, I mean, I think this is why one of the reasons why I'm so passionate. I'll try to answer your question as best I can. I was one of those young people who didn't really know what they wanted to do when they grew up.
That's common.
I didn't have junior achievement in my school when I was going through elementary, middle, high school. Yep. I think we might have had a career day once, but I don't really remember it. So it didn't have an impact. So like most kids my age, the thing to do was go to college, right? That was the message 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's been 20 years, that's crazy. But 20 years ago, hey, go to college, that's what you have to do. So I went to college and started off in a business school because I figured, that'd be a lucrative career, but it just wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. So I switched over and became a history major. And, the problem with that is when you go to a college and, major in anything that history, sociology, all those things, you kind of need more schooling to figure out what you want to do. So anyway, thought I'd be a teacher, but realized the teachers work real hard. It made me really appreciate educators and what they do every day. But I also realized I don't think I can do that for 30 plus years. Right. But I always enjoyed working with young people, and I guess part of me was there was always an aspect that I liked helping other people. Mm-hmm. And you probably get that from your parents and how you're raised and that sort of thing, right? So I fell into this job. Quite honestly, it was one of, I think, 40 or 50 jobs I applied for that summer, and Lou hired me, and I guess the rest is history. But I think what's kept me hungry, maybe I'll find the answer to your question a little bit, it keeps my drive going is the people. Mm-hmm. We're very lucky to work with, lots of, in Hartford, we have over 56 board members. In New Haven, we have a separate advisory board with over 20 board members. We have just great leadership and great people. We've got, thousands of volunteers, thousands of teachers we work with, I'd say thousands of donors, individual donors, corporate donors, so it's those interactions with those people that I think keeps me going and makes me want to do more. Mm-hmm. They make me want to reach more students. Mm-hmm. When I came into this, we set a target of reaching 50,000 kids by 2020. When I said that, we were reaching 34,000, and this year we'll reach 47,000. So we're making some serious progress. Right. And it's also, you don't want to let people down, and people are counting on us, and kids are counting on us. Yep. When you see the impact, and you've been to our events, you see the students and the impact that these programs have on their lives, you can't help but want to do more. And then we've got a very talented staff, and you see the look in their eyes, when they're running programs and working with volunteers, and you see their excitement, and you want to do more, and you want to bring more staff on. And so I think I don't ever see a time where I'll be bored. And I don't ever see a time that I won't be as hungry as I am today. So
wonderful. That's a great answer. There's two things I want to comment on that you just said, and you talked about finding your way to JA and the process that you went through. I think learning what you don't want to do is sometimes as important, or as knowing what you want to do, right? So you don't always know what you want to do forever. You mentioned you stumbled into this job, which has become a path, a way of life for you at this point. But just kind of saying, you go down a road for so long, and then one day you say, "What am I doing here?" That must, it's a hard decision to make. And I think the other thing that I noted as you were talking was you talk about earlier before about kids having dinner table conversation, and I think when we talk about the political landscape today and the economic landscape today, and just living in the Northeast and the cost of living. We all like to talk about what we can do, to change people's lives and to make people's lives better. And it's one thing to say, I'm gonna donate to a cause, which is wonderful, and you got to do that. But to take an active role in shaping the lives of children, entrepreneurship is still, the driver of the U.S. economy. Small business is the driver of the U.S. economy, and you're starting at ground zero. You're starting at the bottom. My dad says you got when you plant a tree, you got to plant it straight at the beginning, because that's how it grows. I mean, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the insight. I mean, I think one of the things that I'm trying to been around for a long time, right? And I think the messaging that I'm trying to really exacerbate when it comes to what junior achievement does in the community is really let people know that we are and should be a key player in the whole economic development realm, right? To your point, we're teaching young people how to start a business. Well, business creation creates jobs and it creates wealth. That's right. That's economic development.
That's right.
We're teaching young people how to make money and manage their money responsibly. That's also a huge impact on has a huge impact on economic development. And when people do those things, when they create jobs and they create wealth, then they start giving back to the community. That's also part of economic development. So, I think that's why JA, again, in my opinion, has been around for as long as it is. And I think you touch on a great point as well of, because we involve people from not just a monetary standpoint. Listen, we need more money to do more programs.
Right.
That's a
given.
That's a given. But we also need more volunteers to teach them. And when you get, we call them zealots in the office, and we've got, just tons and tons. We're so lucky to have, volunteers who've been with us, for, in some cases in my entire 16 years, they volunteer every year, multiple programs. Those folks are the real secret to our success.
That's wonderful.
And I think that's what keeps us going for so many years.
That's great. I love it. I'm going to move to the next question. We just talked about the world and the area the times that we live in.
Yep.
Are you learning as fast as the world is changing, and how do you push yourself to keep growing and evolving?
Whew. The first question is a real tough one. I mean, I think I always consider myself a quick learner, but how do I say this? Maybe a cautious learner. I think there's danger in jumping into things too quickly, without the right thought process, without the right people, discussing pros and cons. So I think, from my perspective, as personally, professionally, I'd like to know what's going on. I'd like to be part of kind of new ideas and new concepts and new ways to do things. But I also don't mind taking a step back and seeing how others do it first, and kind of learn from their mistakes, right? I think, and I'm sure, none of us are perfect, right? We've all made mistakes in our careers and our personal lives. Yeah. I think it's critical that you learn from those, right? And I think so. I like to be the person who, maybe not ahead of the curve, not behind the curve, but somewhere in the middle there.
And I think that's okay. I mean, that's the way that, that's the way you work. And I think that one of the things is the amount of information that gets pushed out to us as consumers is overwhelming. So I don't know if I know anybody that is learning as fast as the world is changing. And I think that maybe what you're saying too is, you ask questions to people that you think you can learn from, that you trust their opinion, and you consider the source, right? So got to consider where it's coming from. You've talked about your board, you've talked about your volunteers, and you talked about things that you've kind of come across personally. And my style, I think this too, since I'm pretty famous for calling you up and asking you questions. I'm a poll the audience kind of guy. I call the people that are in my world that I trust, and I say, whether it's personal or professional, what do you think about this? Should I do this? Now, at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I think is the right decision. But, again, and this was a theme in the last episode, was that you have to rely on people. People rely on people. And your whole business is reliant on people. Yep. And you're changing the way that people think, the way that people respond. And, I mean, it's a big responsibility, but I think that it's a wonderful thing. So this is going to be a good segue. When you think about your legacy, how do you want people to remember you?
Personally, professionally, both.
I want to hear both, and I want to hear two answers: personally and professionally.
Ooh, let's see. Personally, I think I want people to remember me as someone who's known to be a good man, right, or a great man, or whatever phrase you want to use there. Who cared about his family, who did anything he could for his family. I got a great wife, 2 kids, another one on the way. Throw a dog in there as well. Yeah. So we got a great extended family as well. So. I want to be known as someone who cared for his family, provided for his family, and did all he could to give them the best, so that they can be successful. Listen, every parent wants their kids to be more successful than them, right? So, that's my goal for my kids, is that I want to see them do great things, and I'll take great pride in that. And they're already doing that, but to continue to take great pride as they get older. On the professional side, I think, I thought a lot about that actually before I even became president, because that was one of the things that I started thinking about even before I signed that paperwork, right? Which was, I want to be known as someone who, again, kind of the family thing, really took the culture of the team and the staff seriously, and worked just as hard on developing the culture of JA as much as the results. Mm-hmm. My staff can tell you I'm a very results numbers guy, but I'm also sure to make sure everyone understands why we're doing everything. Every decision, big decision, let's talk about why, right? So I want people to think of me as a thoughtful leader, a caring leader. I don't mind being known as a tough leader at some points, because I think there's something to be said about being tough but fair, right? Being transparent, Mm-hmm. And I think the greatest honor when someone retires is for folks who worked with them for many years to say, hey, we would have followed this guy through anything, and we would knock down walls for this guy, and that's not easy. And I take that very seriously, and that goes into lots of decisions that get made every day, because I think if that's the end goal, if that's where you want people to think about you simultaneously while you're trying to create and develop and achieve great things as an organization, then I think you can, close your eyes at the end and rest well that you've done a good job.
Those are good answers, and I appreciate your sincerity there. One of the things I'm realizing as I hear you talk is that you have a lot of people that rely on you professionally, personally, and and you're a stand-up guy. You do the right thing. You're honest. You talked about being a good man. How do you find peace? How do you rest your mind? There's got to be a way. There's got to be something.
If you can teach me how to do that, I'd love to know. My mind is constantly going.
You could say vodka too.
No? Yeah, I could. That helps a little bit sometimes. But
no, but seriously. How do you find peace?
I think sometimes peace for me is being alone, to be honest with you. And I mean that respectfully, because I'm around people all the time.
Yeah.
I think I always need that time alone to recharge.
Yep.
The battery, so to speak, and also just to kind of get some of that peace.
Yeah.
And luckily, I have a great family who understands that and gives me that time when it's needed. And sometimes need a day out of the office just to kind of do that as well. Mm-hmm. But my mind's always racing. I keep a notepad and a pen in my nightstand drawer. My wife knows that she sees the light go on at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever a.m. She knows what I'm doing. It's making to-do lists, or it's jotting down thoughts, for meetings that I want to make sure I get something right. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I probably didn't answer your question, because I don't really think, I think I'll find that peace when I retire. That's just how I'm wired.
You got a long time for that.
I do have a long time, hopefully, but it's just me.
I think you answered it. To me, I think you answered it. I think being alone is one of the most underrated things. Yeah. And for people like you and for people like me who our minds don't stop, we don't sleep. We're around people all day. And I think you and I are actually both fueled and motivated and inspired by people. Like, I like being around people. We like social environments, but every now and then, to just be in silence or to just be by yourself, I think is probably a very important thing.
I think it's actually. I tried to get my older daughter to try to do this, but I don't know how successful I was. But I found years ago, as I started this in college, to be honest with you, I'd have I commuted to school for a couple of years, and I would turn the radio off. Right, I have a 45-minute commute, and I would turn the radio off, and that's when I started to really learn how powerful that 45 minutes was, because that was my time. Right, I was taking back my time, and it gave me a chance to really think. I think that's one of the challenges with all the technology and all the noise and all the stuff going around is I think young people, it's harder for them to turn the noise off. And I would argue, this is just Jeremy speaking, personally, that I think everybody could use a little more of them time. And I still do advice. That. I'm inspired now. I got an hour drive back to the office. I'm gonna turn my radio off.
So we're gonna tell the listeners, after they listen or watch the podcast, they could shut it off.
After the podcast,
they're gonna share it. They're gonna like it. They're gonna tell people to listen to it and then shut it off.
There you go.
That's a good answer. I have 2 more questions for you. How do you respond to failure?
Nobody likes to fail, obviously.
But it happens.
It happens, and I'd argue that people who haven't failed, I don't think can really achieve true success. I don't think people who haven't failed can achieve true, kind of well-rounded, holistic perspective. So I think you got to fail. You got to do it safely. Listen, again, personally, professionally, we've all screwed up. We've all made mistakes. But I think for me, and this was one of the messages that kind of all collectively all of my mentors have shared with me, which has led them to success, is the whole concept of looking in the mirror, right? No one's perfect, so really take a look in the mirror, reflect on those experiences, those situations, those conversations that didn't go well, whatever it might be, and take ownership of things. I think it's a hard concept to learn, but if you can literally take ownership when you fail, or sometimes even if you weren't the real reason for the failure, still take ownership.
Right.
It makes you think differently, right?
Yeah.
It makes you gives you a different perspective about the people you're working with, and I think that's what really fuels growth. Right. To me, failure drives growth, and I think that's a really important aspect for anyone, regardless of what business they're in or what they're doing.
Yeah, wonderful. The follow-up question to that is, how do you celebrate success? Do you celebrate success? And then if so, how do you celebrate it?
Big smiles, man. Big smiles. I mean, people know me. I like to have fun and smile and laugh. I think, there's nothing better. There's one of the things that I remember, come back to Lou for a second. Lou taught me early on in my career. He said, when you get to a management level, the difference is you're no longer an individual contributor, right? So when you're an individual contributor, you're kind of celebrating with yourself, right? High-fiving yourself in the mirror and all that stuff. But when you have people that rely on you, use that phrase, I think that the key thing is to make them feel as best as possible and celebrate for them, right? Celebrate them, right? Because really, so it's a beautiful, I'd say, we could all get better at that, right? Including myself, but there's nothing better than watching someone turn bright red because they're embarrassed that you're bragging about them, or see the genuine smile on their face because you're complimenting them in a meeting or in whatever setting. It's important, right? That's the power of interaction and with people. Listen, you can't build stuff by knocking people down. You got to build things, by building people up. So I think the more that you can it's got to be genuine. You can genuinely do that. I think the better. And I think, whether it's getting a cake to celebrate 47,000 kids or complimenting all those who've helped. I think, again, the joy is it's the giving. It's giving that, it's kind of taking that good feelings and giving it to other people that I think in the long run comes back to help you in the end. Yeah,
wonderful. That's a good answer. I admire you. I admire your work ethic, your honesty. I think that you do great work in the community, and I'll talk about you a little bit too through an experience I had. We had the New Haven breakfast for junior achievement. When was that? In November. Yep. And I met one of the program graduates who's a student at UConn Real Estate School, Kevin
Carnelli.
Wallingford resident. Although I just like that anyway because I live in Wallingford. But Kevin was very professional in the way that he conducted himself, and came in, met with me. We had a great conversation. He's a young guy. He's very sharp. Had said some really nice complimentary things about JA and you and the whole program, and I could just tell that, you know, you and your team have changed his life. Now, he's wanted to change himself, right? So he knows what he wants to do. He thinks he knows what he wants to do. And I think he's going to be successful. I'm sure he will be. He's got the fire. You could see it in his eye. But when I don't, as much as I've supported you and your program, it wasn't until I had a kid like him sitting in front of me in my office asking me questions about how I've done things in real estate, how I've done different things, and to kind of learn that, hey, I used to be that kid. To think about it that way, and that all is rooted back in the work that you're doing. So I really admire that, and I think you're going to help a lot of people, and that's a wonderful thing.
Well,
so
I appreciate that, and just side note, I appreciate you meeting with Kevin, because you know, he is already a star. He will be a great success, and you know, he's one of 47,000 young people
That's
that
right.
we're working with now.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah,
and
of
I
course.
think, you know, the community is better when there's people like you out there as well, you know, doing stuff like this, and also, you know, showing young people that, hey, they can create a business.
They can.
They can do whatever they want. That's a beautiful thing about the society we live in, is that anything's possible.
You know, I tell people all the time that when I started my business, it was a feeling that I'd never felt before. And it's a feeling.
Scary.
It's scary, but it's a and even though I plan on starting businesses and I have a long list, which we won't talk about, but I never want to feel that way again. I never want to feel the way that I felt when I started my first real business. And I've made mistakes and I've learned things. And I think one of the things I've learned is how to rely on other people.
Yep.
And I don't ever think I'll feel that way again. And one of the reasons why I wanted to even do this podcast was because if I could help one person who's starting a business or growing a business or has a business that maybe started out and is declining and they don't know what to do, they have to use their resources. Yep. And you're a resource, and I'm a resource, and there's more people around them than I think that they realize. And a kid like Kevin, you know, he knows it now. I'm in his corner, and that's a powerful thing because there's probably a lot of people like that. Yep. So when he feels a day that he feels alone, he's not really alone. That's what you're fostering. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So
you became a game changer for him potentially too.
Well, maybe. Who knows? Who knows?
Or he maybe became a game changer for you. Who knows?
I think you might be right. All right, so that wraps up the Q&A, and I want to thank you for coming onto the podcast. What I do also every time is I have a genuine interest and a love of coffee, and I drink a lot of it. So every episode I talk about my visit to a local coffee shop. So today we're drinking a Viennese roast from Daybreak Coffee in Glastonbury, and they're right on Main Street. They roast in-house. They have a great setup. It's right at the T of Hebron Avenue and Main Street. Daybreak Coffee. Go check them out. Really like them a lot. They have all kinds of other specialty drinks and lattes and stuff too. But I have to say that this is on my quest for the best coffee in Connecticut. They rank pretty high right now. So and I love that they roast their own in-house, which is definitely a differentiator. So. That brings it to a close. So thank you again, Jeremy, and we'll see you guys all very soon. Have a good one.